am breaking down the news that presidential candidate RFK Jr. is planning to drop out of the 2024 presidential race and is going to reportedly endorse Donald Trump. So I'm going over this article by NBC News first. I'm going to do this, then just look at some polling data and set up a potential interesting topic that I may do in a future video about actual how much RFK support is and how does it affect the 2024 election. So first things first, RFK Jr., as I mentioned, on Friday will be giving a press conference announcing he is dropping out of the presidential race and plans to endorse Donald Trump. J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's running mate, apparently told NBC News that there's been a lot of communication back and forth between the two campaigns. And I'm just going to go further down this article and read just what it has to say. And that both campaigns are working toward a joint appearance. The decision to drop out will end the most prominent third-party candidacy in this race, making it, there are still third-party candidates, but definitely a two-person matchup between Trump versus Harris. Definitely going to be very much more Trump versus Harris than Trump versus Harris versus RFK. There really is not a significant third-party candidate left now. And Kennedy, I believe, I'm not sure if the article mentions it, yes it does, that Kennedy's campaign will hold an event in Phoenix on Friday. Trump is actually planning and holding an event on Friday in Glendale, which is a suburb of Phoenix as well. So a joint appearance by them on Friday is certainly possible, and that's something to keep an eye on as well. This all started yesterday when the VP candidate for Kennedy, Nicole Shanahan, said in an interview that there was talk that perhaps that RFK Jr. would drop out of the race and join forces with Trump, and that there was a few options for their campaign. That one was to stay in the race and, quote, risk a Harris-Walz presidency, and the other is to drop out of the race and join forces with Trump to try and prevent that. So that's likely the reason why this is happening. And also this article goes into detail that Donald Trump Jr. Apparently persuaded Kennedy to back Trump and such, and other stuff as well in the article if you want to read it. But the most important thing to talk about for this is that RFK Jr. will be dropping out. Trump may have promised him a cabinet position. We're going to have to wait and see on that. And that Trump said, I probably would. I liked him a lot. I respect him a lot. The main important news here is that RFK is planning to drop out and endorse Trump. So, to be honest, why does this matter? Because RFK Jr., of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., in American politics, Kennedy is one of the biggest political family names in the history of American politics and elections. Why does this matter, though? Because, well, let's just look real quickly at the latest polls. We're seeing a trend of Harris up by a few points nationally, and you go to the national average, do a quick refresh. It's about 1.5 points where Harris is leading Trump now. Why does this matter so much? Well, because as I mentioned, national lead isn't everything, but there's also a good amount of undecided voters. And when you look at it, what I've been saying for the past few days now is that while the national polls are interesting, what really matters are the battleground state polls. And right now, if you check in the battleground polls, do a quick refresh, right now Trump has a lead over Harris of 0.2% on an average of all the battleground states. All of them are very, very close. The biggest margin is Michigan, and that's now down to 2% lead for Harris. So even that's gone down a bit. This is very, very close, and this graph shows you as well. So why does RFK Jr. dropping out of the race matter? Well, most of these polls they show are just Trump versus Harris. They do have some that go over Trump versus Harris versus Kennedy. For instance, in the state of Wisconsin, Harris has an average of 46.3, Trump an average of 44.8. Kennedy was averaging about 5% of the vote. And now you have to imagine that 5% is not going to be voting for Kennedy anymore. At very least, since he drops out of the race, that 5% won't be there. So what does that 5% do? Well, let's say, hypothetically, Trump wins a majority of the 5%. That's more than enough support to come in and defeat Kamala Harris. Or it's split, Kamala Harris maintains her lead, and then she wins. There's a bunch of possibilities, and this I'm going to go into it in a future video, kind of breaking down the 2020 results with RFK support and just doing a little bit more in depth. But I just wanted to show this, that Kennedy in Wisconsin, based on polls, is getting about 5% in the average. Now we'll go to Michigan. Similar to Wisconsin, 6% lead for Kennedy here. A very close race, 2.4% lead for Harris over Trump. Kennedy getting about 6% of the vote. It appears Kennedy is pulling a little bit more support away from Trump than from Harris. Harris being about 45, Trump at 43. There seems to be more consolidated Democratic support when Harris is included than for Trump when Kennedy is included. So that's something to keep an eye out for. About 6% in Michigan for Kennedy. Now we go to Arizona, 0.6% lead for Harris, 5.8% for Kennedy. Again, hovering around very similar numbers. Nevada, Trump is leading here by 2.2, Kennedy getting about 5% of the vote. Pennsylvania, all-important swing state, in my view, the most important swing state. Kennedy getting 4.4% of the vote in Pennsylvania, 2-point lead for Harris in this multiple candidate matchup. And also, just two more, North Carolina, very, very close to the time, the average. Kennedy gets about 4%. And we go to Georgia, where Trump is up 1.7, Kennedy gets 4. So what I'm trying to convey to you is that when it comes to Trump versus Harris, everyone mostly has their mind made up. But RFK Jr., of any potential third-party candidate, is by far getting the most amount of votes. He is seen as the top alternative to Trump and Harris. And now that he's going to, as the article mentioned, as RFK is going to drop out of the race and endorse Trump, you have to imagine some of his support, some of that 5%, will listen to him and go and support Trump. The question is how much of that 5% will. Is it 50%, 25%? These are all questions that we're really not going to find out until there's either some polling about it or potentially we're not going to find out until Election Day. But you have to think, if the numbers show that RFK Jr. is pulling support away from Trump, which it certainly seems to, if him endorsing Trump can convince some of his supporters to go towards Trump's side, then that might be enough to give Trump a bit of a balance where you look at these polls and the toss-up races where Trump's up over Harris by 0.2 or 1.4. That could really change things, especially in an important state like Wisconsin, as I showed. That 5%, if it goes to Trump, that could be game over and Trump wins the election and Harris loses the state. Same thing for Michigan and Arizona and Nevada, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia. It all could be the same thing where Kennedy giving his endorsement and support to Trump could be enough to just give Trump a little bit of a boost, maybe like a few tens of thousands of votes, like 20,000 votes, 30,000 votes or so. That margin could be the difference between Trump winning and losing. Now, however, there are a lot of assumptions in this. One being that RFK's supporters are supporting him, would be willing to support Trump, even though RFK Jr. endorsed Trump. It's a big assumption because a lot of RFK supporters, they could genuinely like RFK, but they also could just be dissatisfied with the two main political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So, because RFK Jr. endorses the Republican, does that mean they're automatically going to support the candidate that he wants to endorse? I would err on the side of a bunch of them probably will. I don't think all of RFK supporters will, though. I'd probably say that not a huge percentage, but probably a small percentage of RFK supporters will maybe stay home or vote for another third-party candidate. Maybe even a few will vote for Kamala Harris because she closely aligns with more of their views. But I think it's fair to say Trump will probably get a bigger boost from RFK's percentages than Kamala Harris will. I'm just not sure how big of a boost it will be. But that's not me like trying to make this a bad news or anything for Trump. This is very good news for Trump that RFK Jr. is dropping out of this race and endorsing him. Because all the polls I've seen suggest RFK being on the ballot would hurt Trump more than Harris. So this happening definitely helps Trump and, in my view, boosts his chances to win. I'm just a little interested in questioning just how much of RFK's support is going towards Trump. Is it 1% of the 4? Is it 2 of the 4? Is it 3 of the 4? Is it all 4? Is there more support? Is there 5 or 6% who are quietly supporting RFK that now support Trump? These are all questions we have to ask because just a difference of Trump getting like 20% of RFK's support or 50% or 40% or 30%, this could be the difference between winning an election and losing an election. So it's a very important question and one to keep an eye out for. But at very least, at the end of the day, RFK dropping out of the race and endorsing Trump is certainly very big news and could have a drastic impact on the election results. You may not think of it. You may think of a third-party candidate with 4 or 5% of the vote. Could that really make a difference? Well, you can ask George W. Bush and Al Gore just how close a third-party candidate can make in a very close election. So yes, it absolutely can. That'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a like and click subscribe. And remember to share with your friends and family. And stay tuned as I post a video every single day from now leading up to Election Day. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.